I had been in Minneapolis, Minnesota on a trip. Started getting the weather alerts from here back home and looking at it, and I said, well, we're getting a lot of rain. And of course, first thing I do is check our river stages in Killian to see what the river looks like. And the river was favorable. It was actually a little bit low and the wind wasn't out of the southeast. I flew in to New Orleans the Thursday night in the rain and came home and was supposed to go back to New Orleans Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the Louisiana State Firemen's Convention. And when I woke up Friday morning, I started hearing a lot of chatter on the radio. It sounded like things were getting kind of bad. So I called the fire chief from Livingston number 4, and he said they needed help. So I canceled my plans to go to the convention and loaded up in our 5-ton truck.
Chief sends a text message out to us, hey, I need everybody at Station 1. All right, I'll be there in a few minutes. I need you now. All right. We went up to go assist District 4 in Walker. We get up there and we obviously all had never seen something like this in our entire lives. We both compared it to something like Katrina. The first call we get is a guy and once out of his house, he has, I think, 2 feet of water in his house. He had back surgery. Me and Chief, we get on scene. I jump out the truck, and first thing I'm thinking is, man, I got boots, I'm good. Jump in the water, nope, never mind, boots filled with water. It's gonna be a wet day. From the time we got there, it was up to my waist. And to the time we went back around to go through a third time, it was up to my chest. And it was rising pretty quickly, and I looked at him like, we're not gonna come through here again.
Friday afternoon, Friday evening, I came in and I had some training at State Police that day, and I was trying to make my way back to the area and realized that there was a major problem. The interstates were closed and it wasn't just gonna be a normal rainstorm. And so I got back over here, started listening to a lot of the radio traffic. I think at that point, Chief was over helping the folks around Dem Springs, and I can hear one of our other districts up in the northern part of the parish around Independence. They're calling on the radio begging for help. I think at one point they had about 50 people at their fire station just because they had nowhere else to bring them. I called Brian on the radio and asked him if he had heard what was going on in District 11. He said no, because he had been working on their communications over in the western part of the parish. And that's when we realized that this isn't just a localized event, and it's not just going to be a little rainstorm.
The rainfall estimates in the beginning were 5 to 8 inches. Well, it kept increasing as the day went on. And that night, about 9 o'clock, I left the Walker area and went to north of Albany. And that's where the reality really hit me, because I'm from that area. And at 1:30 in the morning, we had 2 to 3 feet of water running down Highway 43, about 3 or 4 miles north of Albany. I knew then that we were in trouble. You know, Springfield was in big trouble. Everybody's in trouble. So I called my wife and I said, wake everybody up. We know we're not ready for this, and there's no way to prepare for what's happening.
August 12th was the first day that I really realized what was going on. It had been raining, it seemed a lot for it was like just drizzly, not so much pouring rain. And right after I had a half day on Friday, got a text from my 13-year-old daughter, and she said, hey, are we gonna go help with sandbags at the church? And I didn't really understand what she was talking about because I didn't know that it was gonna be that bad. I didn't know that the weather was so bad. And when I started to head home, I told her, I said, yeah, we'll go help. So I put out the word to some friends to come help with sandbags, and before you know it, we were, the whole community was trying to rally together to sandbag not just the church, but everywhere. And I was really caught off guard personally by how serious it was. As time went on, we stayed there the whole evening until we ran out of sand. And then the next day, we put out a call on Facebook asking people to come help do more sandbags. And it wasn't just for the church, it was for everywhere.
I just thought it was gonna be a normal rainstorm. Water always comes up around my house when it rains the slightest bit. In March, the highest they got was to the second or third step on our porch. I really wasn't worried about it. I thought it was just gonna be another rainstorm. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to a friend's house, no big sweat. So I packed my bag, and little did I realize that's all I'd end up bringing with me and all I'd end up saving.
It was really a heavy rainy day at work, And we had a flood here in March. My wife and I had decided then that the next time the water started coming up, she was going to get out and go to our daughter's house. So as she was headed out, she called me and said, the water's flowing, it's moving. And usually the floods around here, the water comes up, it goes down, and it's just that. To have it flowing through was unique. Then after work, I come in on Highway 22, and it's like that. The water's just a couple of inches at this point, but it's flowing rapidly across the road. And I was able to make it into town, but it wasn't long after that that the water came up and it wasn't passable.
People started showing up here, not just to get sandbags, but to help people who needed them. And that was without any call for help. They were just showing up. And we had worked for so long. We started at like 8 in the morning and we were doing sandbags until I guess we probably stopped around 3 or 4 in the evening. And the only reason we stopped is because we ran out of sand again. Once that crowd dispersed and everybody kind of went on their way, I came into the fire station and everybody had left. Y'all were all gone and I was here kind of by myself. And I remember that somebody said Brian was up in Albany helping people. And at that moment, I still didn't understand how high the water was.
We pull in to a station at Albany. Their chief comes up to us. We got to go north on 43. All right, no problem. We go up to District 11's area. They said they had like 75 to 100 people trapped, at their station, and they're holding everybody there.
At some point, I ended up in Albany, and the mission was to hit 442 and come over to Crossroads and go up to District 11 to get probably 75 people out of their fire station and back to dry land in Albany, which we assumed was going to stay dry. Come to find out later, that wasn't exactly going to be the case. But
I'm from Albany originally, and I remember the '83 flood. I remember the river, the Albany River, being over the Highway 190 bridge just east of the town limits. That was really the gist of it. You had any low areas there, but to see a foot of water at the red light in Albany, at Highway 190 and Highway 43 where they intersect, and 3 feet of water at the fire station. In every direction you looked, there was water. So we did get some National Guard trucks. Fire District 7 and Fire District 9 sent their trucks to Albany as well. And then we all went to try and evacuate people from the fire station north of Albany to get them to Albany to a shelter. He had over 100 people trapped on a hill at the District 11 fire station. And what was happening, the chief up there has a 5-ton just like ours. He was bringing people from the homes and dropping them off at the fire station as fast as he could get back to them to get them out of their homes. Problem is, we couldn't get them people from the fire station to a shelter because there were no shelters. Every shelter we normally use was flooding.
The phone was ringing here, and I got a phone call from a lady that said, hey, we're on 4th Street. Can you come help us get out? We want to get out. And it was starting to really hit me at that moment. And I think I called Brian on the radio, and I was like, Chief, there's people calling asking to get them out, and there's people here at the fire station wanting to know if they can help. Brian said, go do it. Go help them. So we did. So we went past the football field, and the water was coming up right there pretty high. And I thought to myself, I said, man, it's insane to see this much water in Springfield, even as much as we flood, as often as we flood. Well, I noticed the pastor from the First Baptist Church, who is a pretty awesome dude. That guy was walking, and he had chest waders on, and he was walking down the street, passing up all these trucks with boats and everything, and all these people were doing sandbags on both sides of the road. Water was coming up, and this dude is walking past all this really slow moving traffic. The pastor was coming to get a lady from his congregation who wouldn't leave her daughter. Her daughter was beside herself and just wasn't able to process what was really going on. The house was full of water. And instead of just going to safety, she's just wandering in the water. And her mom wouldn't leave her. And because the mom wouldn't leave her, the pastor wouldn't leave the mom. When we went to George Settlement Road, the water was nowhere to be found. It was dry. There were people out there barbecuing. And I even drove by, and one lady that I know saw me and said, Josh Randall, what you doing? I said, we're going to help get people out of their houses in the terrace. Y'all be ready. The water's coming up. Well, we got around, passed up the new high school site, and I took a picture of that because I said, man, at least it's high and dry. Nothing wrong here. When we got past three-way one stop was when we saw the water just starting to come over the road across from the MVets. And it was shocking to me. Well, we figured we would just back in the truck, launch the boat, and leave the truck and go do what we could. First thing we noticed was some dogs that were still tied up. The people had left, and we cut them loose. And we let those dogs go, but they wouldn't leave us. They followed us. So we went up taking them in the boat with us and going on back, went all the way back to 4th Street, and we got a few folks out, and the lady said, what about my neighbor with all the dogs? And we were piled up with people and dogs, and we made one trip out to the highway, back to Highway 42, and when we dropped them off, we put some dog food out that another lady had and left those dogs there. And the significance of the dog food was how high the water rose. Because I put the dog food on dry land and poured it on the ground so the dogs would stay, and we left. We made one trip down a straight road and we came right back. That was on Center Street. When we came back, the dog food was gone, the dogs were nowhere to be found, and the water was already up to the truck where we parked. So it was rising really fast. And in that last trip, we picked up the pastor who went to go get some folks from his congregation. And at that moment, I think he understood and was much wiser to the situation than I was. He said, we're gonna need to send people somewhere, tell people, because he knew I would get the word out, that we'll take people to First Baptist Church. And on the spot, the guy made a decision to let people come to the First Baptist Church, which wound up being pivotal for this community, because he made a gut decision at that moment that will play out for the next several weeks. And basically, I did a live Facebook feed from right there on the boat, and I told him, I said, tell people whatever you need to tell them. All right, so we're in Springfield on Center Street, and we're just going around trying to help pull people out. Got a boat, gentleman from Bell Chase, and we're going up and down the road just trying to help anybody we can. Water is very high. Very, very heartbreaking. Pastor Richard Sandberg here from First Baptist Church of Springfield, and he's got a little message he wants to give to you guys, so here it is.
We're going to be hosting people at the church, and we need some supplies. If you have some extra food or water, blankets or pillows, please bring it by First Baptist Church of Springfield to help everyone who's been displaced, who will be staying there at the church.
I had been in Albany helping evacuate people up there all night and Saturday till just after lunch. And I received a call from Josh that things were, the phones were starting to ring at the station. Because I would check in and say, hey, when I'm needed, I'm coming back. And saw that it was definitely time to come back south. So I came down with a big truck. One of the biggest concerns we had was where we going to put all these folks. Because I started driving out Highway 42, and there were just people standing everywhere on the highway with some with just plastic grocery bags. That's all they had time to get out of their homes. And I had no place to bring them. And when he called and said that the pastor at the church said bring them to the church, it was definitely an answered prayer, because we didn't know what to do. There were no shelters down here. The buildings that we've historically used for shelters were flooded. So the church has definitely played a major part in the success of our operation.
We came back through, and the water was even higher by the football field. It was completely across the road at that point. It wasn't on both sides, it was completely across. And when we got into town, we just came back here and we just started answering the phones at the fire station. And I didn't understand at the time that 911 was out, and that 911 had already been out for a while, so we weren't receiving emergency calls. We were receiving calls from people who were in the know enough to get that station phone number. And I just started tallying any kind of information anybody gave me. I had folks from out of state. My sister was in Texas monitoring her Facebook feed, and she saw people that were in distress. She would text me or snapshot that to me, and I would write it down and create a mission off of it. And pretty much for the next day or so, every time someone came up, and I don't know how they got to us here, because if the water was up everywhere, there was some pretty tough guys that were showing up with boats saying, what can I do to help? Where can I go? What can I do? We just started creating missions. We were sending people out there to do what they could. There were guys that were showing up out of the blue, and I could almost read it on their face. They were just like, hey, I'm not from here, but I want to help. What can I do? And all I could do is say, give me your phone. I'd key in an address into their Google Maps or something and say, here, go here. There's a guy here, this old, in a wheelchair, needs help. Do what you can. Come back and let me know if you get it. That went on. It felt like a few hours, but it was really 2 days.
You know, when the 911 system went down, that really forced us to reassess what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, because we didn't have any way of knowing what was going on in outside areas. And at that point, I know we basically started dispatching ourselves, and Josh's wife, Tracy, took over being our dispatcher for quite a number of days.
It was hard, but I felt like I was helping a lot of people that needed help. We were able to send help where it was needed at the time. It wasn't hard because I felt comfortable doing it, but it was a lot. It was a lot of calls coming in. The higher the water got, the more calls we were taking in. And from then on, I was at the phones taking all the 911 calls and then dispatching them out to the fire department that the call was for about 72 hours straight.
That night, I don't think I ended up falling asleep until that, or getting a little bit of sleep until that next morning around like 5. Yeah, around like 5 or 6, I ended up getting 2 or 3 hours, and that's when we got a call saying we had more people trapped in Carter Plantation, and that's when they went and started doing rescues over there.
And I took a picture. There's a sign in front of Carter Plantation that said the clubhouse was right there, and it's Whitewater Rapids in front of that sign. It looks like something you would see in Colorado. 4-foot tall Whitewater Rapids, just rolling through there. And, you know, if I didn't know it was Springfield, Louisiana, I'd be waiting to see a group of tourists on a raft going through there. It was unbelievable how fast that water was moving. Anybody walking through there would have been swept away. There's no doubt in my mind.
When tough times come calling, you got to do what you got to do. And sometimes just the right person is in the right situation. And this particular guy, he doesn't back down. And when he pulled up in his work truck, I kind of knew we're about to see something happen here. We got this asset sitting on our lawn, and what's going to happen next, we don't know. He asked me, he said, "What's up with the airboat?" And I said, "Well, it belongs to the sheriff's office. They're cut off. They're probably not going to be able to get to it right now." And he said, "Well, I think I can make it work." And I said, "Well, we'll ask for forgiveness later. Maybe we can do some good."
Josh was the one that kind of egged me on to hotwire the boat. If you ask him about that, he's got his version of the story, because he was the one that was there when I said I could hotwire the boat, and he saw that look in my eye, knowing that, you know, something's about to happen, and he kind of poked me.
And sure enough, when he struck out to go get his tools and head towards that boat, I looked at these two guys that were hanging out with us. I think they were from St. John Parish. And I said, "Look, y'all, when he gets that thing going, because he will, y'all better be ready to go, because he ain't gonna stop." And sure enough, whenever I was inside and I heard that thing crank up, I said, "Yeah, there he goes." And the one I see running out to the boat was my wife, Tracy. She struck out and ran out there and got in with him, and I think that's the last time I saw her for about a day and a half. When she did come back, her hair was all wild and she was soaking wet, and she had, I think, seen the world and back.
Seeing it and seeing the water come up was emotional for me, and then after the water had came up and then we got the airboat running, adrenaline just took over. And we stayed gone for 3 to 4 days straight. We'd come here, change our socks, and then head back out.
Jason already is a good fella. I'm not sure why they did it, but they parked his airboat here at the fire station and left it. We needed it, and so it was hot wired, and we used it for 2 days. He's aware of that now. And then we had a little laugh about it at a meeting last week, but we did use the boat a lot. We brought medical patients out to the ambulances with it. We evacuated Carter Plantation with the airboat and some mud boats and our big 5-ton truck. So the boat was needed in a big way, and it served a good purpose here. You know, I don't recommend hot wiring the sheriff's boat, but we did it, and it's okay now. He gave me a pardon, by the way. We I had made a few trips out Highway 42 west of town, and I went out to the Hutchinson CC Road at 42 at the little store and was picking up people. And the water rose so quickly on one of my trips. When I was returning, the truck was full of people. I'm not even sure how many people were in it, but when I came to the Blood River Bridge, the water had been running over the road right there, but within a 30 to 45 minute time period of me picking up a lot of people at the store on my way back, it was running over the rails. I really lost a lot of confidence in the bridge at that point, you know, because I'm thinking that's a lot of pressure on the bridge, but at least I know it's still there.
The bridge that he was speaking of, we actually had to take a pike pole and find the bridge one night because we thought it was gone. It was completely under 6+ feet of water. All our markers on the edge of the road were gone. We could no longer see where we were going. We were just going by memory.
Driving the truck in the high water at night was a very challenging, one of probably the most challenging parts of the operation.
We're driving down the road and it's pitch black. And we ran off the road a little bit and almost got stuck in the 5-ton. So he's like, I need you to get out. I know you're gonna hate me. I'm like, all right. I get out. I'm in chest deep water with my flashlight and you can't see your hand underneath the water. If it's right on top of that water, you couldn't see it.
So what I learned to focus on were the knobbies of the tires on the blacktop. So you just have to go slow. And it did. It made every mission take forever, but safety was always first. The truck literally would be idling to where you could feel the knobbies rolling across the asphalt. You could drive with your eyes closed and just feel for the roadway. And that's a lot of way I could describe it, because when the headlights were underwater, it was pitch black. I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like it. And I still can't tell you the reason why they even thought they could. Took a Ford pickup truck and attempted to cross the Blood River Bridge on Blood River Road. Now granted, the water's 6 feet deep, 5 to 6 feet deep, raging across the road there. We could barely see the tops of the signs that marked the guardrails. That was our guide to cross it in our truck, in our big truck. I got a phone call from a resident down there and said, hey Brian, somebody just went across and they washed their truck away. So a couple of us loaded up and took off down there real fast. And when I pulled up to the bridge, the water was in there on the floorboard of the truck with us. I saw a male subject and a female both hanging on to the tree limbs of a tree. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, this is really happening. So we pulled up and we let out the rope with the flotation devices to them, and then we pulled them back to the truck. And I mean, it definitely, timing was everything, and we were able to save their lives.
Think about those operations, the rescue operations like what Brian was talking about earlier. It's amazing because the guys that were with him, those are some of the guys that their house had flooded. They were already in fireman mode and had to turn off hey, my loss of property. I still got my life. Let me get out here and serve. And these guys are out there, putting their life on the line, and that's amazing to see. If I remember correctly, it was 33 firemen. So of the 33 firemen, 16 of them have received damage to their home, and they're out there still serving the community. It's amazing because 2 of the guys on that rescue mission basically had that tucked in the back of their brain. They're out there playing a role in saving somebody's life.
The stress of driving that truck under those conditions with 25 to 40 people with babies and everything they owned in the back of that truck, I owed it to them to keep that truck right on that road, keep it upright, and get them to safety. I tried to maintain my composure because I had to. There were a few times early on, especially when I saw it beginning to happen, when the reality was hitting, that it was hard to control my emotions in the truck. I was happy that everybody was out of the truck and didn't know I was in there crying, and I'd get it back together before they'd come see me. But we did. We had to focus so much on what we were doing. You had to kind of You had to put those emotions to the side for a little while. But at the same time, this is my home. Everything I know, everyone I know, everybody's being affected and losing everything that they've ever worked for in their life. The last thing that I can help them with is to make sure they stay alive. And that's what our mission was.
It's one of the things that I've taken away about this community. Everybody pitched in to help each other out. All of the politics went out the window. That was a really great experience.
We got firemen basically going around the clock trying to help out. The water is starting to drop, but anybody who's wanting to help out, coordinate that through myself at the fire station, you can come by here or send me a message.
During the height of the storm, as well as up to a week or more later, from Mississippi and southern Louisiana and other places that have had disasters in their history, they came and helped. We had people from Mississippi, volunteer fire departments, come and stay here for a couple of weeks and cover our routine calls while our firefighters are trying to recover their lives and continue with the flood.
And I remember meeting people from Florida and Alabama just coming to help with their boats and bringing food and blankets and simple necessities, toothbrush, toothpaste, shampoo, soap, and it was the drive we needed to keep going.
I heard it referred to as the Cajun Navy. People that I knew, people that I didn't know, that just turned out with their boats and worked. And they weren't just goofing off, they worked, running rescues. When we started getting things under control, it was because there were so many people out helping.
There were so many that just took up the call, guys who owned boats, guys who had big trucks, who were just out there getting people out. It shouldn't surprise me with those kind of people, the quality of people, that we had zero loss of life.
You ride around and you see the mounds of debris in front of people's yards and you realize, and even my yard, you realize that's their life, that's their belongings, that's their home. Those piles of debris started to appear before the water was gone. I'm still running rescues in a neighborhood and there's a guy in his house already gutting and remodeling. It won't be long. Everybody will be back to normal.
You can go 30 miles in each direction from our small town and you can see piles of debris still out there. These piles represent a lot of hard work, but it's good to know that folks are not giving up. Folks are still fighting.